I think a lot of times you might assume the most charismatic people in a room are like the ones with the wildest stories, right? Or the sharpest wit.
Oh, definitely. The loudest voices.
Right. But sociologists will actually tell you that the people we remember most fondly, the ones who effortlessly build networks and communities, are actually the ones who have mastered the invisible engineering of small talk.
Which is such a great phrase. Invisible engineering.
Yeah. So today, welcome to the deep dive. We are taking a stack of research and field-tested strategies to decode the mechanics of casual conversation. Because our mission today is really to transform that absolute dread of unstructured networking into, well, a highly systematic, powerful tool for connection.
And it is such a critical skill set, especially because the source material we're pulling from today comes from a really fascinating perspective. We're analyzing the work of Debra Fine from her book, The Fine Art of Small Talk.
Right.
What makes her insight so incredibly valuable is that, she wasn't born a natural extroverted socialite. Not at all.
No, she describes her former self as like a highly introverted, intensely shy engineer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she naturally gravitated toward a technical career precisely because it required almost zero interpersonal chatting.
So she was essentially hiding, in the safety of her profession. But then she faces this massive life pivot. She takes time off, she has kids, loses 65 pounds, goes through a divorce.
A lot of life changes all at once.
Yeah, a massive amount. And suddenly she finds herself re-entering the dating and social scene as she's approaching 40. And the isolation just becomes untenable for her.
It forces her hand.
Right. But because she is an engineer, she doesn't just try to, wing it. She treats social interaction like a mechanical equation. She studies it, she breaks it down into component parts, and really figures out the fundamental physics of how a conversation actually gets off the ground.
Which is such an empowering framework for anyone listening.
Yeah.
And it completely strips away the myth that charisma is some magical genetic aura you have to be born with. It frames small talk as a strictly learnable, executable sequence of behaviors. But to understand how to execute that sequence, we first have to really examine the baseline. Like, why do perfectly competent, highly intelligent adults walk into a Chamber of Commerce mixer or a friend's wedding and suddenly turn into paralyzed, awkward statues?
It's so true. It feels like a software incompatibility issue. We step into these environments wanting to connect, but our brains just freeze.
Yeah, we just shut down.
And we gravitate toward the nearest snack table, right? We just meticulously inspect a shrimp cocktail purely to avoid making eye contact with anyone.
Oh, I've been the shrimp cocktail person so many times. But that paralysis is actually a deeply ingrained defense mechanism, and it goes all the way back to our childhood programming.
Wait, really? Childhood programming?
Yeah, think about the safety and etiquette mantras that parents drill into toddlers. Things like, silence is golden,
Oh, wow.
or don't speak until spoken to, wait to be properly introduced. And, of course, the most powerful one of all, don't talk to strangers.
So we are basically running toddler survival code in an adult networking environment.
Exactly.
That is wild, because those rules are fantastic if you're like 5 years old and wandering away from your parents in a crowded supermarket.
Right.
But they are incredibly self-sabotaging when you are 35 and trying to build a client base or find a partner.
Precisely. I mean, your physical safety is almost never at risk at a networking luncheon, but your amygdala is still running that old stranger danger software.
Right, it's just muscle memory at this point. We retreat to silence because it feels safe.
So to bypass that, the author introduces this massive paradigm shift. The primary rule for adults looking to connect is this: you must assume the burden of conversation.
Assume the burden.
Yes.
Yes.
You have to accept that it is entirely up to you to make the other person comfortable. You cannot just stand against the wall waiting to be adopted.
Okay, let me challenge that for a second, though. Because if I adopt that mindset, if I assume the burden and walk up to someone who is sitting quietly by themselves, how do I know I'm not just being an obnoxious nuisance?
That is the exact fear everyone has.
Right. Like, what if they are an introvert who desperately wants to be left alone, and I'm just violating their peace and quiet because I decided, I need to assume the burden?
Well, that fear is exactly what keeps everyone glued to the wall. We project our own insecurities onto the rest of the room.
Oh, interesting.
We convince ourselves we're bothering people or that we aren't interesting enough. But the source material provides a brilliant anecdote to completely dismantle that fear. The author tells this story about being at happy hour with a friend. And across the room, there's this man named Rex.
Okay.
And all night long, she and Rex are exchanging glances. They make eye contact repeatedly, but he never makes a move to approach her.
Oh no. So her internal monologue probably starts spinning completely out of control.
Completely. She immediately internalizes his lack of action as her own personal flaw. She assumes she must still be, like, too heavy or too tall or just not attractive enough to warrant his attention.
She assumes he's actively rejecting her from across the room.
Exactly. But her friend refuses to let her wallow and basically forces her to go initiate. So she's terrified, but she walks over and introduces herself. And Rex instantly pulls out a chair, his face lights up, and he is just absolutely delighted to talk to her. They end up becoming very close friends.
Wow. So the whole narrative she was spinning in her head was entirely fictional.
Entirely. Rex wasn't rejecting her at all. He was just paralyzed by his own crippling shyness.
He was running the exact same don't talk to strangers programming she was.
Yes. And this reveals a really fundamental sociological truth. The vast majority of people in any given room are just as terrified of rejection as you are.
That makes so much sense.
When you assume the burden and initiate, you aren't bothering them. You are rescuing them from their own awkwardness. You basically become the hero of that interaction.
Okay, that reframes the stakes beautifully. So we swallow the fear, we assume the burden, but how do we actually execute the physical approach without it feeling like, an ambush?
Well, you start by calibrating your target. You look for what she calls the approachable person.
The approachable person.
Right. This is the solitary individual who is not actively engaged in a task. So if someone is reading a book or furiously answering emails on their phone or deep in conversation with someone else, you respect their boundary.
Obviously.
But if they're just hovering near the buffet or staring vaguely into the middle distance, they are signaling availability.
Well,
You make eye contact, offer a warm, symmetrical smile, and you walk up and introduce yourself as if you are the host of the event.
a simple declarative introduction like, "Hi, I'm so-and-so."
Exactly.
But see, here's where the mechanics usually break down for me. The name game.
Oh, the name game is tough.
It's the worst. You approach, they say their name, and my working memory just gets instantly hijacked by my own adrenaline. And literally a second later, the name has completely evaporated.
It happens to everyone.
So isn't it a massive faux pas to halt the momentum just to ask them to repeat it? I usually just nod and pray someone else walks up and uses their name so I can steal it.
No, do not rely on the steal. The methodology here is remarkably strict. Never, ever fake it. If you forget the name, you must confess immediately.
Really? Why the zero tolerance policy on faking it?
Because names are the ultimate anchor of rapport. When you fake it, you create this subtle but pervasive cognitive dissonance. You spend the next 20 minutes internally panicking about being found out, which completely destroys your active listening.
Oh, that is so true. You're not even in the conversation anymore.
Exactly. You might even start avoiding that person for the rest of the evening just to cover your tracks. The cover-up is mathematically worse than the initial crime.
Right.
So you simply say, "I am so sorry, my mind just went totally blank. What was your name again?" It shows vulnerability and resets the interaction honestly.
That transparency probably actually builds a bit of trust right out of the gate.
It absolutely does.
Mhm.
And there's an equally strict corollary rule regarding names here. Never shorten a name to a nickname without explicit permission.
Oh, I see people do this all the time.
If someone introduces themselves as Michael, you call them Michael. You do not presume to call them Mike.
Because it forces a false intimacy, right?
Exactly. Assuming a nickname implies a level of familiarity that you have not earned, and it can instantly trigger resentment. The author shares a really striking story about this woman who frequently gave presentations for government agencies. Her given name was Debra.
Okay.
Inevitably, during Q&A sessions, audience members would just casually address her as Debbie.
Just a casual, unconscious diminutive.
Right, but she absolutely despised the name Debbie. It felt infantilizing to her. It drove her so incredibly crazy, and she was so exhausted by the constant presumption that she went through the arduous legal process of changing her first name to Julia.
Wait, she legally changed her name?
Legally altered her core identity, just to physically prevent people from presuming the nickname Debbie.
That is a staggering testament to the emotional weight we attach to our names.
It really is.
So, when you respect someone's introduction, you build an instant bridge. But when you bulldoze over it with a presumptive nickname, you basically burn that bridge before you've even taken a step.
Perfectly said.
So let's assume we navigate the introduction perfectly. We got the name, we use the name. Now we face the most terrifying obstacle of all, the dreaded pregnant pause. how do we actually sustain the momentum?
This is where we shift from the approach to the actual mechanics of conversation. The author uses a highly effective visual metaphor here.
Oh, the game of Foursquare. I love this analogy.
It's so good.
If you think about childhood Foursquare, the entire objective is to pass the ball in a way that keeps the rally going. A conversation is identical.
Right.
If you lob a closed-ended question at someone, something like, "Did you have a good weekend?" and they respond with a simple yes, you have just spiked the conversational ball out of bounds. The rally is dead.
The rally is completely dead.
You have to pass the ball in a way that allows the other person to easily return it.
And you pass the ball by utilizing open-ended questions. This strategy is called digging deeper. The reason open-ended questions work so well neurologically is that they bypass the brain's analytical filters and they invite storytelling.
Ah, okay.
If you ever experience a total mental blank, the author suggests falling back on the acronym FORM, F-O-R-M. That stands for Family, Occupation, Recreation, and Miscellaneous.
So instead of, "Do you live around here?" which is a yes or no spike, you ask, "What was it like growing up in your hometown?"
Precisely. Or how did you get started in your industry? Or what do you like to do when you're not working?
Those are great.
These questions require low cognitive effort to answer because people are experts on their own lives, but they yield rich narrative responses.
But the real masterstroke, the technique that keeps that Foursquare rally going indefinitely, is scanning for what the book calls free information.
Yes, free information is everywhere once you train your brain to actually look for it. People are constantly broadcasting behavioral or visual cues about their identities and interests.
Like what?
Well, it could be a unique lapel pin, a faint regional accent, a sports team logo on a travel mug, or even the fact that they're wearing a cast on their wrist. These are engraved physical invitations to ask a personalized question.
It's like they're dropping breadcrumbs for you to follow, though, the source material does offer a really hilarious cautionary tale about those breadcrumbs working a little too efficiently.
Oh, the FedEx clerk.
Yes. The author was in a FedEx office in a massive hurry, just trying to ship a package and get out the door. She gets to the counter, notices the clerk is left-handed and has incredibly elegant penmanship.
Right.
Thinking she's just offering a polite piece of free information small talk, she says, "Your left-handed handwriting is beautiful."
A seemingly harmless, polite observation.
But it acts like a detonator. The clerk takes that one tiny piece of validation and just unleashes an unstoppable tsunami of a life story.
Just pours out of it.
Yeah, she starts explaining how she used to be a teacher, how she systematically perfected her handwriting, how she moved to Arizona, went through a divorce, got remarried, moved to Colorado.
All from one comment about handwriting.
Right. The author is physically inching backward out the door of the FedEx office, and the clerk is still eagerly narrating her entire biography. Why does that happen? Why did a comment about penmanship trigger a memoir?
Well, it happens because we are living in an epidemic of loneliness. People are absolutely starved for validation. They're desperate to be seen and heard.
Wow, yeah.
When you notice a detail about someone and comment on it, you are signaling, "I see you." And sometimes the floodgates open because they just haven't felt seen all day.
Which fundamentally elevates what we are actually doing when we make small talk. It is not just about killing time.
No, it's about profound empathy. And the most moving example in the research involves a man named Matt McGraw. He worked as a hospital prep tech.
Oh, this story really got me.
It's incredible. His specific duty was to prepare male patients for open-heart surgery, which required going into their rooms at 4:30 in the morning and shaving their entire bodies.
You literally cannot imagine a more high-stress, terrifying, and undignified moment for a human being.
It is the absolute nadir of vulnerability. And Matt realized early on that if he just walked in and silently executed his medical duties, the atmospheric tension in the room was suffocating. The silence magnified the patient's mortal terror.
It makes it so clinical and cold.
Exactly. So he engineered a different approach. He began utilizing simple, non-medical small talk. He would ask them where they were from, what it was like growing up there, what their favorite hobbies were.
He essentially used the form technique in a clinical setting.
He did. And the physiological results were immediate. The patient's shoulders would drop, their breathing would regulate. By engaging them on topics totally unrelated to the impending surgery, he pulled them out of their terror.
He validated their humanity at the exact moment they felt most like a slab of meat on a prep table.
Precisely. Small talk in that context isn't trivial at all. It is an active deployment of deep compassion.
That completely recontextualizes a casual chat about the weather, you know? It can literally be a lifeline for someone's nervous system.
It really can.
But there is a dark side to this dynamic, too. Giving someone the floor is powerful, but if you give them the floor and your body language shows you are mentally a million miles away, you aren't building rapport.
No, you're not.
You are actually committing what the author classifies as a conversational crime.
Right. Because active listening requires visual, verbal, and mental synchronization. It's maintaining an open posture, utilizing appropriate eye contact, and offering verbal cues like, tell me more about how that felt.
Yeah.
When that synchronization fails, usually because our own ego or anxiety takes over, we become conversational criminals.
So let's analyze this criminal lineup, because everyone has encountered these offenders, and if we are being painfully honest, we've all probably been one of them at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
Suspect number one is the FBI agent.
The FBI agent. They operate strictly by interrogation. They're rapid-fire questions at you. Where do you work? Do you live downtown? Are you married? Where do you go to school? But they offer absolutely zero self-disclosure in return.
It feels like you're sitting under a swinging bare light bulb in a concrete room. It is just exhausting.
It is entirely one-sided. Psychologically, the FBI agent is usually driven by intense social anxiety.
Yeah.
They mistakenly believe that by constantly asking questions, they are keeping the spotlight and the pressure off themselves.
They think they're being polite.
They do. They think they're being polite conversationalists, but their lack of vulnerability just alienates the other person.
Then we have suspect number two, the one-upper. This is the conversational hijacker.
Yes, the hijacker.
The text shares a perfect illustration of this involving a woman named Judy. So she's at a party, telling her friends this highly dramatic story about a vacation on the Amazon River, where someone in their group was bitten by a massive, terrifying scorpion.
A very high-stakes, exotic narrative.
Right. But before Judy can even hit the climax of the story, her friend Lindsay loudly interrupts and shouts, "Oh, I was on a river in Kansas once, and I saw daddy longlegs that were as big as your hat."
The Kansas daddy longlegs competing with the Amazonian scorpion.
It's absurd. And Judy literally has to reach out, pat her friend's arm, and say, "Lindsay, this is my story."
Ouch.
The interruption completely deflates the speaker and kills the momentum.
Well, the psychology of the one-upper is fascinating because it is rarely rooted in malice. Often, they think they are building rapport.
Wait, really?
They hear your story, their brain finds a loosely related personal memory, and they interject it, thinking, look, we have shared experiences, we are bonding.
Ah, I see.
But because they steal the spotlight before the original speaker feels heard, it registers as ego-driven dominance.
That makes a lot of sense. But the most insidious offender of all is suspect number three, the advisor.
Yes, the advisor is the most seductive conversational crime because it genuinely masquerades as helpfulness.
Right.
The advisor offers unsolicited solutions before they have done the work to fully understand the actual problem.
The ski lesson anecdote in the book captures this flawlessly.
Well, it's a perfect example.
The author is in Vail, taking a skiing lesson. She is moving incredibly cautiously, basically frozen on the mountain. The ski instructor, fully embodying the advisor, takes one look at her rigid posture and instantly diagnoses her problem.
Right.
He tells her, "You have weak quad muscles," and he starts prescribing physical leg exercises for her to do right there in the snow.
He diagnoses a purely biomechanical flaw based on a split-second observation.
Exactly. But his diagnosis is entirely wrong. If he had paused his impulse to fix her and just asked a single open-ended question like, "What are you feeling right now?" he would have learned that she is an avid competitive runner with incredibly strong legs.
Right. Her quads were not the problem.
Her quads were not the problem. She was just absolutely paralyzed by a phobia of heights. Because he didn't listen, he prescribed a physical solution to a psychological fear.
And we commit this crime constantly in our interpersonal relationships. A partner or a colleague vents about a frustrating day, and we instantly roll out a 5-point logistical plan to fix their problem.
Oh, I'm definitely guilty of that.
We do it because sitting with someone else's negative emotion is uncomfortable. Providing a solution alleviates our own discomfort. But what they actually needed was empathy and validation. When you act as the advisor, you aren't listening. You are just managing your own anxiety.
That is a harsh but necessary truth. So let's say you find yourself cornered by an FBI agent or a one-upper. Or perhaps you've just had a lovely reciprocal conversation, but it has naturally reached its conclusion.
It happens.
The fear of being trapped in a dead-end interaction is a massive deterrent to mingling. How do you execute an exit without shattering the rapport you just built?
You utilize the framework of the graceful exit. The foundational rule of the exit strategy is absolute integrity. You must state your agenda clearly, and then you must flawlessly execute that exact agenda.
So if I say, it was wonderful meeting you, I'm going to go grab a fresh plate from the buffet.
You must immediately and directly walk to the buffet. If you state the buffet as your exit strategy, take 3 steps away, bump into an old friend, and launch into a new 20-minute conversation, you have deeply insulted the person you just left.
Oh, definitely.
They now realize the buffet was a polite fiction constructed solely to escape their presence.
There is no worse feeling than watching someone fake an excuse and then blatantly do something else. It completely invalidates the interaction you just had.
To circumvent that risk, you can employ what is known as the George Plimpton trick. Plimpton was a renowned literary journalist, and his strategy was to always walk around a cocktail party carrying 2 drinks.
2 drinks.
2 drinks. That way, whenever a conversation stalled, he had a built-in, foolproof exit line. He'd just say, "Please excuse me, I need to go deliver this second drink."
That is brilliant. It provides immediate, plausible deniability. Another highly effective method from the research is the changing of the guard. When you are speaking with someone and a third person approaches your circle, you take the initiative to warmly introduce them to each other.
Right.
Once they begin exchanging pleasantries, you use that natural distraction to gracefully step back, saying, "I'll let you two get acquainted. I need to go say hello to the host."
It is so seamless. It facilitates a new connection while preserving everyone's dignity as you depart.
Now, I want to map these mechanics onto what is arguably the most high-stakes networking environment in human existence, the single scene.
Oh boy.
Dating is essentially just networking, but with the terrifying specter of romantic rejection hovering over every syllable.
The emotional stakes are exponentially higher,
Yeah.
but the physics of the interaction remain exactly the same.
Interesting.
The process begins before you even say a word. When you arrive at a venue for a date or a singles mixer, you do not rush frantically through the door. You pause at the threshold. You take a breath. You survey the room, and you allow yourself to be seen. You are giving your own nervous system a moment to regulate, while visually framing yourself with confidence.
And when you are actually sitting across from your date, you have to actively suppress the FBI agent instinct, right? When we get nervous on dates, we tend to default to rapid-fire questioning, which quickly turns a romantic prospect into a tense job interview.
Yes. To prevent that interrogation dynamic, you must shift your strategy from using follow-up questions to utilizing follow-up comments.
What is the psychological mechanism there? Like, why does a comment work better than a question?
Questions inherently trigger the analytical, problem-solving center of the brain. When you ask a question, the other person subconsciously feels they are being tested. They feel they have to formulate a correct answer.
Ah, I see.
But comments trigger conversational mirroring. If your date says, "I have to travel for work almost every single week," and you reply with a question like, "What cities do you go to?" you're demanding data.
It feels transactional.
Exactly. But if you respond with an empathetic comment like, "Wow, that sounds incredibly exhausting," you aren't demanding anything. You are offering a reflection. Because there is no wrong answer to a comment, their nervous system relaxes.
That makes total sense.
It prompts a natural, expansive elaboration rather than a defensive data drop.
It leaves them space to laugh, to agree, to take the conversation wherever they feel most comfortable. It transforms the interaction from a deposition into a genuine dialogue.
It really does.
So when we pull all of these pieces together, we realize that small talk gets an incredibly unfair reputation. We culturally dismiss it as this superficial, trivial waste of breath, but it is the vital first domino.
The very first one.
You cannot access the deep, philosophical, soul-bearing conversations without first successfully knocking over the domino of casual small talk. It requires assuming the burden, passing the ball intelligently, and genuinely holding space for the person standing in front of you.
It is the absolute bedrock of trust and community building. If we refuse to engage in it, we remain perpetually siloed in our own anxiety.
Which brings me to a final thought I want you to consider, because this extends far beyond cocktail parties and blind dates. Think about the trajectory of our modern culture.
It's shifting rapidly.
Right. Our reliance on smartphones, remote work, and algorithmic echo chambers is actively atrophying our small talk muscles. We are systematically designing serendipity and casual human collision out of our daily lives.
It's a real loss.
If the mechanics of casual conversation are truly becoming a dying art, And the few people who take the time to master this engineering aren't just going to be the most popular people in the room.
Right.
In an increasingly isolated world, the ability to effortlessly bridge the gap between strangers is going to become a massive, almost unfair competitive advantage. Keep that in mind the next time you find yourself staring at a shrimp cocktail. Maybe it's time to turn around and assume the burden.